This one's going to be a little different. I believe, I hope. So I had a couple of live streams I did today. I'm not particularly proud of. I was really bothered by, and I knew kind of what was going on without knowing what was going on, and I wanted to take a break. Which in one of those streams I did. I mentioned that, and I'm keeping all the streams there because I need the training data. Because I get to analyze all that stuff later, which I didn't do yet. Just to be clear, this is an impromptu one, wasn't scheduled. But I wanted to sort of literally use the tools that I think are there for all of us, because I'm where a lot of you are, I think. Because I could feel how I was using AI, not operating AI, as I was trying desperately to try to figure out how I was not operating it. Because clearly wasn't getting the result I want. And so without going into much more, I'm just going to flip into the mode and I'm going to show you kind of what I think you should do whenever this stuff happens. So I'm just going to this modern AI. I'm clicking on the leap, going into my Gemini. And we're going to leap in here. Okay, so I've got a really frustrating experience right now. I've done a couple of live streams today. I'm kind of becoming this known person for latent experience prompting and being able to help people to kind of solve any problem at all times with AI. And it was actually something that this was a thing on, helping to write emails and copy and from a more experiential point of view. And here's what no one knows happened. And I wanted to kind of get this experience out, because I'm not sure what to do with it. And that is, this morning, I actually went through this process and I quickly did it and it worked perfectly fine. And it was simple and it was easy and it flowed, and I had a gem that wrote amazing emails. He didn't do email campaigns. And I knew I couldn't use it because the whole point was to show people how to do this live and to show them that it is easy live. And if I can do it streaming live, then you can certainly do it just spending a few minutes at home, right? Because that's all I'm asking people to participate. I'm not asking them to stream everything live, because that is really hard. I cannot express how difficult it is to do what I'm doing and try to be in that moment and maintain. And yet that's kind of what the job is right now. So, which is fine. I'm not complaining about it. I secretly enjoy it. I think that's okay. However, I had this crash and fail, which was my first one, and I knew there was going to be these, and there's going to be more. But now I'm trying to figure out, I got to get out of the cycle faster, because I was in my own head way too much. I could feel it. I could feel that cognitive load that was just piling up as I was trying to think my way out of this thing, and I couldn't experience the thing. I was in the moment, knowing I was not in the moment. And what I'm trying to figure out is the benefits or the system, because I took a break. And then I just lay down on the bed for a few minutes and I thought, okay, cool. I'm just going to get centered. I'm going to feel in my body and all that sort of stuff and light up those senses. And all I was doing was thinking about doing all of that. I wasn't actually doing any of it. I was not in the moment. And I needed to leap, and I needed to complain, and I needed to be frustrated, and I needed a place to be vulnerable. And I needed a place to shout and say, this is horrible and feels gross. And I don't like this feeling, and I'm not this person. And the worst part is, Gemini had a problem with the video button or the microphone button that was really keeping me from being able to speak. And I had to edit and type everything. And that was the other problem, is I was literally typing. I was thinking about what to type, and I was editing my voice. So I couldn't speak like I'm speaking now. And that's why I couldn't operate. And I'm realizing that as I'm saying this now. So I guess that's one insight. But the problem is, the microphone button wasn't working on anything, because I tried it a bunch of different ways and a bunch of different accounts and a bunch of different browsers. And so I thought, okay, well, since I'd already done this once before, even though I mic'd it out the once before, I would kind of just think through what I mic'd out and then tell it what I knew it did. And that is what was going to cause it to miraculously completely be something else. Essentially what I did is I took a tree that I grew and I said, oh, I'm going to build a tree out of Lego bricks and it'll be the same tree. At least I think that's what I did. So at this point, I'm kind of confusing myself, but I wanted to be frustrated and vulnerable and come from a place of what I think is an incredibly deep failure, but not in the way that it's experiencing I didn't want to, I'm not experiencing it as like this, oh my gosh, my life is over and I'll never be able to do this again type failure, even though it is publicly being live streamed. It's more like just, okay, this is a failure, but I got in my head and I want to be able to get out of my head faster so I can kind of de-stress in that moment. What is the thing that I'm thinking of when I'm in the moment and things are getting really stressed and the pressure's on, and now you're thinking about, oh, there's people watching on a live stream. Oh, now what are they thinking? Oh, now it's going weird. Okay, now it's not being entertaining. Okay, now I've got to get back, the attention of the audience. Okay, what was I trying to think of before? And you have that sort of mindset and that spinning frustration and that tornado that just appears and seems to take control, where you're just like, you need a break, and that's one thing to do, and I'm sure that's useful, but it kept going after the break. I could feel it. I took a break, but it wasn't that shift. And I know that if I had used this leap gem earlier, it probably would have been okay, but I didn't. And so I'm trying to figure out, is there a way potentially that there's a bridge, a little mental thought or a glimpse or something that I could just anchor to that might be able to help me to get faster back into a more resourceful state where I can reset. And I'm not sure how to do that. And I thought, why not try to leap it and see what happens? I think enough said on the experience. Now I'm just going to go through it. Let me just blow this up a little bit for everybody. Okay, so performance anxiety for sure was happening. The riptide of self-awareness. Oh, this is good to know. This has happened before. So demonstrate the expertise in real time under the public gaze, led this cognitive crash, which is exactly what's happening. And that's why I'm keeping the live streams there, because I want everybody to see this stuff happens, so we can train the data and be like, oh, okay, what are my patterns there that led to that? So I can, and that's what I'll do later. It's just that the live stream hasn't finished processing, so I don't have the transcript yet, but I will absolutely do that. Technical fault, the non-working microphone. That was something I neglected to tell anybody, but you'll notice that all my live streams, I'm talking through the prompts because it's very important. I think there's context, that is massive context that's delivered when you deliver a true experience through voice. And the edit, and the problem is I had already done it. So I knew it could be done. I knew what it looked like. I knew what the emails were going to look like. I knew what the gem was going to look like. I knew what the basic patterns were going to look like. And it was heading there. And then I tried to think ahead, and I stopped giving context is what I did. I didn't give the right context. And I'll explain this when I do the second part of this, but for those that happen to watch this sometime near that crash and burn one, it was because I focused it on one person, and that I didn't realize I was doing that. But that's exactly what it's clearly obvious I was doing it. I just didn't realize what I was doing, which was I was so focused on the one person, it missed the archetype group. And when you do the archetype group, there's gonna be a lot more experience there. And because it knew this one particular market perspective, this one person's perspective, it was nailing the email from that person's perspective. And what I needed it to do is to expand out from what the multiple experiences that someone like that person would have. So that email has to be fuller. It has to have more experience. It can't be as direct because it's talking to an archetype. As opposed to an individual person, but it's kind of talking to something within us. And that's what I missed that I was so usefully obvious in the other one. So, but that non-working microphone, I'm gonna have to figure out another way to do that just in case it ever happens, but this thing just was not working. So thank you for fixing this, Google, because it was happening a little bit yesterday too. All right, wasn't the main problem. It was the catalyst for the mental collapse, which is true because I couldn't get out. Not just trying to solve a problem, observing yourself trying to solve a problem. That's exactly what was going on. Simultaneously thinking about the audience watching you to solve the problem. It was thinking. Your internal experience is one of escalating cognitive load squared. Yay me. The attempt to recenter was just another layer of thinking, not to break from it, which was true. That's exactly what happened. The attempt to recenter was another layer of thinking about it. I was trying to think my way out of it still. And the difference is in using AI, especially in the experiential way of using AI, it's lighting up your senses, which it's about to do. You are a little more in your body. And I know that sounds weird. It just means you just are aware more of what you're sensing. So you hear sounds more often than you've heard sounds before, right? It's that kind of thing. You just hear the birds in the background a little more often than you hear the birds. Something like that. It's kind of what it feels like. But the trick is not that part. You're not really paying attention to that. It's not distraction. It's just that your body has access to more data, I think. It's more incoming sensory perception that it's now a little more consciously aware of. right? I think that's kind of what that feeling is. And all of that data can be processed by the brain in a completely different part of the brain, which I think gives us a little bit more, it's a little more efficient. I just think it's a more efficient use of processing to get the brain into an action, right? To a resourceful state. I think that's what's happening. And so at least that's kind of what it feels like. And when I could feel myself piling on the thinking. So I kind of get this cognitive load squared thing. And trying to get out of it was just not going to help. So I felt the need to get out of my head, but the only tool I had was more thinking. And that's what the leap helps me to do personally. And you can see I'm using the exact same thing you can use. But the idea was to just to kind of pull me out of a cycle that I could have just continuously thought through, not realizing that that's not actually the helpful part. The thoughts are actually the problem. I'm observing all these different thoughts, but they're not necessarily important to have to observe or deal with or answer to, right? And that's what I'm trying to pull myself out of. Is I don't know that I'm right about everything I was thinking, but I was thinking like I was right about everything I was thinking, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to break that cycle of how certain I am. And I know there's a little part of me that was like, oh, you're thinking about this too much. I was certain I was thinking about it too much, but I couldn't get myself to not think about it. And I wanted to just take a true mental break to see it from a different perspective, which is what the leap helps me to do. And this is just a completely different, more of like a personal development style, keeping yourself in a resourceful, productive, performance-oriented state. That's kind of what I'm trying to demonstrate here. So the trick is trying to intellectually analyze the failure point. Wasn't the button, wasn't my stress, which is true. That's what I was literally trying to ask it to do that too. I'm trying to map myself ways so I can install a mechanism, and you can hear as I'm talking very mechanically, which won't work for a human, right? We're a little different. Define the internal, physical, emotional experience of successfully returning a resourceful, centered state, which is what I need to do. That's also what I did differently for that email. Was that. So we'll talk more about that when I do. I will do that other live stream separate on that one. We'll come back to that. The logical premise for an AI, the request can be a 3-step plan to recover from public failure, which is, of course, not going to happen. So people, and maybe you've done things like this before. I have, for sure. Where like, oh, I need a rapid reset. Give me 3 tips. I've tried this. I literally have done stuff like this before. I know I have. And that's kind of what I was asking it to do. If you look back at my original prompt, which is what the whole point of Leap is to take this and say, okay, you're asking me to do this, but we both know you really want this. So I'm gonna answer as if you really wanted this, and I'm gonna help you bridge the gap, which is what I need, because I need the examples. But I've literally done stuff like this. Oh man, in fact, I literally just asked it that. So, which is cool, because this is the point of AI operator. Doesn't mean you never make mistakes with it. I just tried to use AI on my own gem that I built, knowing that you shouldn't be doing what I just did with it. But the point is, and this is what's already switching my state. The point is, I got it out. I had to get it into there so I could get it out into AI, because what I'm doing is I'm kind of creating like this little virtual digital self, this map of what my experience currently is. I'm mapping it into the AI's LLM, big giant database and wherever, and it's lighting up kind of this little virtual map representation of what my current experience is, so I can explore that and see it from outside myself. So I'm not in the machine anymore, so to speak. I'm not trying to think my way out of thoughts. I'm looking at what that thing is thinking and going, oh, well, how else are you experiencing it? What's another way? What's a more productive way? Well, okay, cool, I got it. And then it sort of just gets you back centered. That's kind of the idea. And by centered, I really just mean in a productive performance state. Call it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter what the label is. It's just better, right? Can we just say it's more useful? And that's kind of how I like thinking about it. It's just a more useful, productive state for whatever you want to do. Because otherwise, you're just not going to be a pleasant person to be around, especially for yourself. And I knew that was starting to happen. That's probably another reason why that may have happened, in my opinion, that I could have a conversation like this, which are, again, one of these raw, vulnerable conversations, but I will occasionally have. So I'll dress up as much next time. I'm joking, only because I had that incredibly thick shirt on in a room that is 82 degrees, and I was really hot as well. There were so many other things going on. Anyway, that's going to be a story I would get to have forever. All right, so yeah, generic self-help list is kind of what I asked it for. So let's get into what the leap is going to be. Describe the first 60 seconds of a complete non-analytical psychological shift. Oh, imagine that. Something you don't have to think through. Subject is a live streamer who's just crashed and is internally spiraling, detailing the moment they stop thinking about resetting and actually reset. while still on camera? Oh, what a better way to ask that question. Holy cow. And I know this, I've seen this stuff a million times, but you see what I just did? I was like, oh, like, yes, that's what I need to do. Focus on the internal monologue, the physical release, the shoulders of the jaw, small counterintuitive action, which is nice. This counterintuitive part is good for me. I definitely appreciate that. That serves as the anchor, so it has a little contrast. It pops out in the environment. What is this narrative? Should feel like an immediate palatable drop. There we go. I'm a little bigger for everybody. From a manic state into an intensely centered one. And I don't think I was manic, but probably in some low way. But I was definitely not productive. Let's just say not as useful state. So I've got really useful and not as useful. Conclude by isolating the single key thing. Okay, so here's kind of what it is. Camera's still running, silent red recording light, which mine's technically green. The only thing affirming the disaster. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but no words came. Instead, in my head, the dialogue was a shredder. They see it. They know I've lost the thread. You are the expert at this, and you can't even do it. Hell yeah. That happens. Just so you all know, that happens so many times every live stream. Even the ones where you're like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. That happens all the time. So, surprise. The cognitive friction, it's just that I don't experience it, right? As heavy as I was just doing, because that's all I was seeing was like, oh man, because I knew. I was like, oh. The cognitive friction was so hot, it felt like a low-grade fever, which is, again, so I took off that shirt. I was looking at the screen, but I was seeing the ghost of the previous smooth stream. Yes, I was. Absolutely was. So what that's sort of thinking about there, it's not quite what happened, because I didn't live stream the one I did earlier. I saw Jeff's comment that he left in there and said, oh, I was trying to find this stuff. I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure this will work. And I just kind of went through those basic steps, took it, and it was like, oh yeah, and it leveled up. It did exactly what I wanted to do. It was kind of do long story short, it worked really, really well. And I was like, awesome, except it wasn't in that account. And this is your Mind on AI account. And I don't really want to use the other accounts for anything. So when I came in, I was like, cool, I'm just going to go through the same steps. And then the microphone thing wasn't working. I was like, okay, well, at least I know what it's going to need. So I'm going to try to pattern it as best I can, and then I was totally thinking about everything. And what I was trying to basically do again was essentially build a live tree out of Lego bricks. It is just not going to, it can look like a live tree, but not be live. And that's kind of what happened. I used AI right there for an hour and a half, which I understand is probably what Jeff's been doing. So he's probably had that same frustration. So it's good for me to experience that, because it'll rekindle that. And to be honest, I want these challenges. Actually, you know what? This is really good for all of us, both of us, because anything you're having like this with AI, throw it in the comments. Like put it in the community somehow, post, whatever. I will tackle that for you, because I will experience the public failure stuff. If you want to see that, not to see me fail. It's to see you succeed, right? To show you how you can succeed with it. But I don't mind the failure part, because clearly I handle failure a little differently, because my job now, when I'm failing, I'm like, okay, let's go live stream and show everybody how we're failing, and talk about it. So I clearly handle that differently, and want to try that more and more. But that might be something I can help with. It might be something that allows, because I can do that, I will do that and help with whatever the thing is that I don't know how to do for you. And I will fail over and over again until I show you how to do it, because I want to experience that. I want to be able to experience you knowing how to do it. And the only way for me to do that is for me to be able to show you how it was done. And that might mean that, again, there might be a few different failures and I chain them together, but you'll see the growth and you can follow along and fail along with me. Or if you want, just wait till the end and you're like, okay, I'm just going to skip to that. So maybe that's a good little positive. Already, again, this is what's a more resourceful state, a more useful state. That's what's happening right now for me. I'm out of my head. I'm a little bit more just available. My brain feels more available now. So now a small shift. My gaze drifted a few inches past the camera lens to the dusty, unused corner of the room. It wasn't an act of looking for a solution, but a moment of sheer, resigned surrender, which is so hard. In that blank space, my mind, for the first time in 10 minutes, was truly blank. My shoulders, which I hadn't realized were nearly touching my ears, dropped by a millimeter. The internal shriek didn't stop, but it became background noise. The key was that I didn't try to fix the live stream. I didn't try to salvage the lesson. It's exactly what I was doing. I was trying to get a lesson of something useful because I was realizing I was not producing something that was as useful as I knew it was, because I had already experienced the earlier usefulness. Quite literally, I've already got it. So I thought, oh yeah, no problem. I'll just be able to do it again. And I just don't want to show like successful ones because it happened on the first time, but you'll never believe that. And that's okay. That's why I want to show it live. Because I think just showing something that's there can feel like I edited it or it was just manufactured. And this is not something that should be a one-off type of thing, right? If you can do it once, you can do it again and again and again and again and again. And that's the idea. So I'm gonna solve that. But I want, again, I'm starting to realize like this might be my weird little superpower is I will take those hits. So give me these ideas, give me these problems you're trying to solve. I don't care what they are. Be super specific if you want. You can give me details that you think are useful, and I'll try to build these things and be willing to fail as I do until I'm not. But I promise you I won't. Like I can't say when. That part I'm not certain on, but I know I won't. I know I'll deliver you something that will be useful. So, and that feels like right on. So anyway, as I'm going through and I'm experiencing this, what I'm trying to also do is to communicate kind of what's going on in my head. The body, I think, probably you might even be able to see a little more relaxed than it was before, as I'm going through. So I thought this came not as an instruction, but an observation, simple and immediate, like a clean pane of glass. This is the material. Which is a weird way of saying it is what it is. But that's kind of what it is. It's like, this is the material. I was trying to create something out of something that it wasn't supposed to be. I was trying to turn that into a lesson for you, but it was just material and, has become a lesson for me that in some way I hope is also becoming potentially useful for you. Even if it's just a way for us to connect and be like, whoa, he did that. Wasn't a failure to be hidden or overcome. It was a new raw data point. Raw is the key word there. The anxiety didn't vanish, very true, but it instantly reframed from a threat to a resource. And I can't say it was exactly a threat. However, that's a good way of saying opposite of resource, right? If it's not a resource or it's a resource. But I absolutely wasn't being useful for you and I wasn't being useful for me. And I was aware of that, but just couldn't quite get out of that. Picked up the microphone, which is finally fixed, or it's simply been muted. It was not muted, I promise, because I was doing Google Meets and everything else. Everything else worked except within Gemini. It was horrible. And the only one that did work, FYI, was on the mobile phone. So my backup, if I did have to end up doing this, today on this thing, right now, I was going to use my mobile phone because the mobile phone Chrome browser microphone does work. So I could do that. And then I would refresh and show you the words and everything on here. But anyway. It's back. The microphone was working, which was fine. Or the little microphone app. So hit a wall there. The machines are machines. The humans are the humans. Let's talk about what it felt like. That feeling of being on, snap back in place, not with a forced cheer, but the deep, unexpected stillness, the catalyst. This is the material. So that's kind of the anchor for me. I guess when that happens, and I'm crafting this experience, right? This leap is mine. Like, this isn't something. It's absolutely love you coming along for the ride, but I'm not expecting you to have the same experience I'm getting, because this was for me, right? I needed this. And so what I like about this is I know exactly what this means. Like, this is an experience for me where I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the message we get out, and the message is the message. And whatever it was is what it was supposed to be, which again, I used to just be like, it is what it is. Like, that's just that. It's not nonchalant. Like, I don't care. It's just, it happened. So clearly that's the useful. You just don't see all the usefulness yet. And that's kind of how I look at it now is, oh, okay, this failure, this thing that was accidentally not great, right? Didn't produce the result I thought it was supposed to produce at the time. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe that was me being so certain of my perspective on what it required itself to be that I didn't realize there was other parts to this that I was kind of building. And there was this other part of my brain that was like, okay, think whatever you want. But meanwhile, we're going to construct the rest of this machine. And in another hour, which you don't know, you're going to be live streaming, telling everybody all about why that happened. And so that's kind of cool. I think that's easier to stay in this mindset, because every single time, and it does take time, I think, but every single time I have a story in my head of something that was negative, there is an eventual positive, right? Everything that wasn't fully useful, eventually I kind of go like, man, I can see, not that it's a great experience. I'm not saying I love the experience. I don't want to do that all the time. I'm just saying I don't mind doing it. It's just, I don't want to live it every single, it's not 24/7. I don't want to, kind of do that, but I don't mind experiencing that. It's okay, as it goes through, and just being able to be like, this is just the process, coming through. Didn't work the way I wanted it to. Doesn't mean that wasn't the way it was supposed to work. Now let's continue. And that is that single thought that instantly repurposes the spiraling, which is kind of nice, especially when I'm live streaming, because I don't necessarily know how to do this in the best possible way. This channel is literally, again, 7 days old. Yay, us. We just had our first week. And I'm learning as I'm going on purpose, building this whole thing live as I'm building it, so that I can see how it happened later, so that everybody else can see how it happened later, and so that I can learn from it as I go. So that's kind of the idea. And by reframing the moment of crisis, which is kind of what I was coming out to, like, oh, I'm stuck. I felt very much just running into a wall over and over again, like the same brick wall. That's what it felt like. I was just stuck. The material, the very essence which you teach, the failure ceases to be a professional threat, becomes the most valuable asset you have, which it's starting to become. The internal state shifted from paralysis to clarity of purpose, which clearly I think is being communicated even now, me and you. Stop chasing the ghost of perfection, radical acceptance on the fastest ramp to action. Use this technique anytime you feel the pressure of the audience, which I didn't feel pressure from you at all. Just please understand that. I felt pressure from me. Don't fight the spin, just ask, what is a single clear observation I can make now that reframes this entire moment? So there we go. So that was my little leap. I wanted to take the opportunity to show you how to do it as well. Now, again, this was about a half hour, but that's because I was talking it out with you. Imagine just going through this and just experiencing it yourself, where you're not having to narrate to somebody, and what that level of experience is like. It is substantially higher because you're just with you and you're not trying to explain and think it through what's going on, which is what I'm doing. I'm kind of playing both sides here a little bit, but the experience is very real inside. I got what this is talking about. I am in a more resourceful state. I know how to already set up the next live stream so that I can do it live, still have that feeling of doing it with no net, meaning I'm not 100% certain it's going to work. I'm just pretty sure what I'm going to do is going to work. So it still has that element of like, ooh, let's find out, which I need, because that's the whole point. If it's 100% guaranteed, what's the point? That's not a fun channel. Let's do something challenging, and then level it up and try other stuff. So again, on that note, if you need help with anything that you're working on with AI on, if it's like super private stuff, I'm happy to help where I can, but I'd rather try to keep it in the community. And so if it is private stuff, keep it through as public as you're willing to make it, because that's kind of what I'm doing too, right? I'm trying to lead the way here a little bit, or not lead the way, it's not in a leader way, but more of like as an example to say the more you are that, where you can give a little bit of the details that you need without being overly vulnerable, right? Do it to the level that you're comfortable with. You do not have to match my level of comfort. I'm not saying go to do live streams and tell everybody what's going on inside your head. I get it. But this is my mind on AI. So this is your mind on AI. Like, this is just how it works. And so the idea here is put it in the community, drop a comment, leave comments like Jeff did earlier, where he was talking about what he was going through and the workflows, the challenges, what it is. What I might do, spoiler alert, to see how I'm going to do this live stream, is break up some parts to be able to help people through those, but I'm willing to fail for them, and that's the trick. I kind of like, what's really weird about this particular leap here is, one is this part isn't there anymore. Like the whole cognitive load firing brain thing that you're this overthinking, you're like, oh my gosh, and that tense, gone, back, feels connected, feels like, instead of this, it was like okay, and I'm excited for the next one, that is the weirdest experience. I'm looking. It's not that like before, I would always tell people like there's going to be a crash and burn, and I'll just get through them, and it would be like, and it's going to suck, like I don't really want there to be a crash and burn, but there's going to be a crash and burn, and I'll get through it, and that's what it just was. And now I'm like, man, every time I crash and burn, this levels up. And now I'm like, oh, I got to be the guy who shows you how not to do it sometimes too, because that might be how you're doing it. And then I'm going to realize, oh, that's what okay, never mind, I can operate. And it gives me that data because I'm trying to operate it in a way, and I might get a little confused too. It happens to all of us. And I think that's the coolest thing, is being able to say like, we can all kind of fail in this together, but I don't mind doing it publicly on your behalf. So I can say, hey, this door didn't work. This door didn't work. I tried to go against that wall a million times. It definitely doesn't work. But I did find that there's an elevator that takes you all the way up to the penthouse. So let's go there. And then I'll show that publicly. And I will fail along the way occasionally. So I'm going to ask for forgiveness for that and sort of expect that. And that's just going to be the fun parts. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those and I'm going to put them in an additional playlist that I'm going to call training data, which we can all use for AI purposes. You can do any of this stuff. I've showed you how to do it before in the gems, and I'll show you otherwise. Take the transcript and I'm going to feed it back in the AI and be like, okay, now what was the patterns? And I'm going to try to learn from that better operation skills, because I'm improving my experience. This whole technology is only like, what, 3 years old at this point? It's crazy. It's only been 36 months since somebody talked about ChatGPT. 36 months. That's amazing that we are here already at this stage. So I'm very much look forward to how this is continuing to ramp up. And I think this has been one of the most useful leaps I have ever had. And I thank you for being here, as I could share it with you. And hopefully, again, be just an example of something of how you can use this tool, because it is fascinatingly useful. So with that, thank you. I will get back to the actual live stream for the gem I'm going to do. It's going to be probably over the weekend, because at this point I want to chill. But over the weekend, I'm going to do the live stream for the copy, but it's going to be specific for, I think it's going to be specifically for email. And then I'll do another one for copy on a landing page. And then I think I'm going to do another one that orchestrates that, so I can have a team. And I want to show how to network gems, which is going to be a substantial level up for this particular channel. But I want to show you how you can do that. And I want to kind of set that up. So that will be a fun little weekend project. All right, with that, thank you all. Appreciate it. And I will hopefully see you over the weekend. Take care.